The House of Shadows on the outskirts of the sleepy village of Ravenswood stood a grand but decaying mansion known as Blackwood House. Its once glorious facade was now weathered and cracked, with ivy creeping up its walls and broken windows that seemed to gaze lifelessly over the surrounding grounds. The villagers whispered about Blackwood House in hushed tones, for it was said to be cursed, haunted by the memory of a terrible crime committed within its walls many years ago. The legend of Blackwood House began with the mysterious death of Lady Eleanor Blackwood, the last of the Blackwood line. She had been found dead in the Grand Library, her life snuffed out by an unseen hand. The circumstances of her death were never fully explained, and the house had remained abandoned ever since, a chilling reminder of the darkness that once took hold of the estate. Despite the warnings and the eerie tales, there was one person who was drawn to Blackwood House. Thomas Everett, a young writer with a fascination for the macabre, had recently moved to Ravenswood in search of inspiration for his next novel. The village's haunted mansion was exactly the kind of story that intrigued him, and he decided to investigate the house for himself. One foggy autumn morning, Thomas approached Blackwood House, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. He pushed open the rusty gates and made his way up the overgrown path to the front door. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. As he reached the porch, he hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath and entered the house. The interior of Blackwood House was as desolate as its exterior. Dust-covered furniture stood like silent sentinels in the dim light that filtered through the grimy windows. Cobwebs draped from the chandeliers, and the air was heavy with the musty smell of neglect. Thomas walked through the grand foyer, his footsteps echoing in the vast, empty space. He made his way to the library, the scene of Lady Eleanor's mysterious death. The room was large and filled with bookshelves that reached to the ceiling. A massive fireplace dominated one wall, and a heavy wooden desk sat in the center of the room. Thomas could almost imagine Lady Eleanor sitting there, surrounded by her books, unaware of the fate that awaited her. As he explored the library, Thomas's attention was drawn to a small, ornate box on the desk. He opened it and found a collection of letters tied with a faded ribbon. The letters were written in a delicate, flowing script, and they told the story of a forbidden love affair between Lady Eleanor and a man named Edward. The letters spoke of their plans to run away together, away from the oppressive confines of her family. Thomas's mind raced with possibilities. Could it be that Lady Eleanor's death was not a random act of violence but a crime of passion? He decided to delve deeper into the mystery, determined to uncover the truth behind the legend of Blackwood House. Over the next few days, Thomas continued his investigation, poring over old newspapers and talking to the few villagers who remembered the events surrounding Lady Eleanor's death. He discovered that Edward had been a local artist, known for his fiery temperament and passionate nature. The villagers had always suspected him of being involved in Lady Eleanor's death, but there had never been enough evidence to prove it. One evening, as Thomas sat in the village pub, he was approached by an elderly woman named Agnes, who claimed to have known Lady Eleanor. Agnes's eyes were bright with the memory of the past as she recounted her friendship with the tragic lady of Blackwood House. Eleanor was kind and gentle, Agnes said, her voice trembling with emotion. She was trapped in that house, surrounded by people who didn't understand her. Edward was her only escape, her only hope for happiness. Agnes went on to explain that she had been with Eleanor on the night of her death. She had seen Edward arrive at the house, his face twisted with rage and despair. There had been a terrible argument, and then the sound of a gunshot. Agnes had fled in fear, unable to face the horror of what had happened. Thomas listened intently, piecing together the final moments of Lady Eleanor's life. He knew that he needed to return to Blackwood House one last time, to see if he could find any remaining clues that would confirm Agnes's story. That night, under the cover of darkness, Thomas made his way back to the mansion. The house loomed before him, its shadows deep and foreboding. He entered the library once more, the room now filled with an almost palpable sense of dread. As he searched the room, he noticed a loose floorboard near the fireplace. He pried it up and discovered a hidden compartment containing a small, leather-bound journal. It was Lady Eleanor's diary, detailing her love for Edward and her fear of the consequences if their affair were discovered. The final entry was written on the night of her death. In it, Eleanor spoke of her desperation and her decision to leave Blackwood House forever. She mentioned meeting Edward in the library, hoping to convince him to come with her. The last words were a plea for forgiveness, a cry of love and sorrow. With the diary in hand, Thomas felt a deep sense of resolution. He now understood the true story of Lady Eleanor's death, a tragic tale of love and betrayal. He left Blackwood House for the last time, the weight of the mystery lifted from his shoulders. Back in his cottage, Thomas began to write. The story of Blackwood House flowed from his pen, a haunting narrative that captured the essence of the tragedy and the enduring power of love. His novel, The House of Shadows, became a sensation, drawing readers into the dark and mysterious world of Ravenswood and its haunted mansion. The village of Ravenswood slowly came to terms with the true story of Lady Eleanor and Edward. Blackwood House remained a place of legend, but now it was also a symbol of the enduring power of love and the importance of uncovering the truth, no matter how deeply it might be buried in the shadows.